Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. I'm your host, Erin Urban. I'm so excited to talk to you today about how you can unlock more passion, purpose, and potential. Now, it's a crazy time right now. We've got so much being thrown at us. If you are thinking like you're feeling a little stifled or a little boxed in, or you're not quite sure, maybe you're distracted, let's talk about how you can shift from frustrated to fulfilled, shift from confused to confident, and from disconnected to aligned. Today we have a wonderful guest. But before I give you all the goodies on our special guest today, I want to welcome you to the show. Hey, how are you doing? Come on in. Let's have a great conversation about how to achieve more passion, purpose, and potential in your life and in your career. So if you want to lead an inspired life, you're in the right place. And if you've never seen me before, my name is Coach E. Urban or Erin Urban. You can find out more about me at coacheurban.com down here in the box here. And of course, the podcast is available on all major channels. You've got Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and you name it, and more podcasts than I could probably name. Let's talk about how you can shift your thinking to align with who you really want to be with Tony Martignetti. Now, Tony is a trusted advisor, coach, experienced creator, author, podcast host, and speaker. And he brings 25 years of business management experience, formal training, and extreme curiosity to elevate leaders and equip them with the tools to navigate through change and unlock their true potential. So I would love for you to help me welcome Tony to the show. Tony, it's great to see you.
It's great to be here, and thank you so much for a warm welcome.
Yes, of course. I'm really excited about our conversation. And for those of you who are just tuning in now or watching the replay later, don't be shy. Please say hi, say where you're from, come on in and ask your questions, because this is us helping you thrive and elevate. And speaking of thriving and elevating, Tony, what got you into what you do? Now, you are the owner, founder, and grand guru of inspiredcoaching.com. Did I get that right? Inspiredpurposecoaching.com.
Yes.
I knew I was going to get that wrong. Inspired purchase. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's do a banner and make this easy on Erin because she can't talk today.
Yes.
What got you into doing this? Because there's always a catalyst behind everyone's coaching story. And I'm really interested to hear what your catalyst is for what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And honestly, there were a lot of different catalysts along the way. But there was one that really pushed me to make the move, to make the real change. And that was the moment when I was sitting in a boardroom at a biotech company and realizing that I could no longer keep on doing what I was doing. I had to make a change. I had to really connect with who I really was. I was fooling myself to think that the person I was being was really all there was.
Right.
I think there was, realizing that I had more in the tank than what I was showing up as. And it came in this boardroom because I realized as I was looking around and seeing leaders trying to protect their own image of like being right and kind of show up as like I have the right answers. And I looked around and I saw like all these people on their cell phones and just completely checked out. And I said, we're in the business of like, this is a biotech company and we save lives. How can we be wasting our lives sitting in this room?
Right.
So I decided at that moment that I'm going to leave this room to change the room. And so I got up and I walked out and decided to do something about that situation. I didn't know what that was going to look like. To be honest with you, I don't always tell people to do this. This is not the advice I have for everyone else. If you want to start something, a business or a new endeavor, it's always smarter to start with like small steps. But what I decided in that moment was to take the big leap into the unknown. And I didn't know if it was going to be coaching or what it was going to be, but I knew that it had something to do with connecting with how leaders show up in the world differently. So that was the big moment. But I will say that there were a lot of small moments that led me to that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a really inspiring story. And Tony, it takes a lot of courage to do
Yeah.
that. It takes a
Mm.
lot of courage, and in knowing, I think that there is something else. I feel like a lot of people cling to that very broken way of being
Yeah.
because they don't know that there is something else. There's another way that they can be. There's another way they can show up and they can be aligned. They feel like, well, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I love that. I can't tell you how many times I've been into coaching conversations and people have said to me, that's what it is. That's just the way it
Mm,
is. And I say, well, what if it wasn't? What if you could change the way things are? What if things could be different? And, what would you make that look like?
right.
Um,
Right.
so therein enters the world of, disrupting your life and changing your patterns.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You
Mm.
know, for those of you that are tuning in now or later, let me know, have you had a moment where you wanted to walk out? I know that I have. I know that I have for sure. And one day I decided it was time for me to take that door in a
Mm.
positive way. But there, like you said, there's a lot of moments leading up to that. And a lot of moments where I was like, can I just show up at work as my true authentic self? And but what's really interesting, I tell people, for most of my young career, I was a very fixed-minded person. I'm not the person you see today. I thought that how you were was just how you are, and that's just how it is, right? We've heard all this, well, that's just the way it is. And I thought that to be a leader, you had to show up with a certain persona, probably that
Mm.
persona that you were interacting with in the boardroom.
Yeah.
And it was not helping my career. It did
Yeah.
not help me inspire trust. It did not help me align with my inner self. It did not help me voice my true brand. It did not help me voice my true message. I was misaligned. I was miserable.
Mm. I love that you share this because, especially because there's an element of, really knowing that we often hold ourselves back by putting us in a box. We put ourselves by these titles and say, this is the way things are. And, I've gotten into this career. This is how I should show up. Like, for example, most of my career, I was in a finance. I worked in a finance capacity. So the thought was that I should be analytical minded. I should be thinking numbers. I'm not a people person, or I shouldn't be a people person, because that's not how finance people are wired. That's foolish. The reality is putting boxes around ourselves limits our potential. So we need to make sure that we don't limit our ideas of what is possible.
Right.
Boxes are convenient, sure, because they help us define people. But is that what's really helping us? No,
Mhm.
it doesn't.
Right. Are we defining or are we confining? I think
Confining,
I
yeah.
think by defining, sometimes we confine, and
Yeah.
that's our own beliefs, so these self-limiting beliefs that we don't even realize we're carrying. We don't. I mean, my pivot moment, which I talk about in my book, Elevate Your Career from Impact and Income,
Mhm.
I was stuck in that box. I was a believer in the box. I was playing in the box. We had a sandbox going. I was all in the box, but I did not like the box.
Yeah.
I was mad every day.
Mm.
And it showed. I mean, you can be frustrated every day and not and just think, oh, no one's going to figure this out. No, people knew I was not happy. And who wants to work with somebody who's not happy?
Exactly. You may
Nobody.
think you're faking it, but the reality is everyone can pick up on the vibe, no matter how well you think you're hiding it.
That's right.
Especially when you're the leader who's trying to be something that you're not. Your vibe is showing, and especially when you're under stress,
Yes, it comes
because
out.
yeah, it comes out.
Yeah, and when we need to be our most calm, centered, and authentic self is when, if we are constantly being pulled outside of who we are, that's when the rubber band snaps back.
Yeah.
and it doesn't usually snap back to our most graceful, calm, and centered self.
Yeah.
Not usually. Usually it goes to the other side, and how, we may not be able to respond positively to a stressful or frustrating situation. And we'd
Yeah.
like to. Yeah. And what's interesting is, if we're so attached to this false mode of being, do we even know who we are?
No, a little water break, but
Oh, yeah.
let that point really settle in. But do we really know who we are? If we're that's the first thing that I thought of when I got into coaching was um, really understanding who I was. Who am I? And having that first honest conversation with myself was really important. That awareness of how I want to show up as an individual was what brought me into the deeper level of coaching that I got into. In fact, my tagline is inspiration through honest conversations. And that first conversation you have is with yourself,
Yourself. Yeah.
and creating that awareness of who am I really? Have I been faking who I'm trying to be because I define success based on what everyone else thought success is supposed to be?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, yeah.
maybe I'll just share a quick antidote to that story, a little deeper part of that success definition for a moment. Most of my life, as a child, I was an artist. I was really praised for the work that I did as an artist, to the point where when I started to get into high school, and I was in advanced placement art, the thought was that I was going to become an architect, an artist, go to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. And then this moment happened where some of the adults in my life said, like, look, you've got to think about how are you going to make a living? Like, how are you going to make money? How are you going to survive as an artist? So I quickly pivoted into the world of becoming a pre-med major in college. So
That's very different.
very different. I mean, I liked sciences, so it wasn't like, completely out of left field. I did really well. But the idea is that I completely pivoted because there's this feeling of, well, success is being a doctor, being a person who is respected as a doctor. So I did that, then decided that it's not for me.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and that's what led me to the next pivot in my early career, which was getting into business classes, business school. I got my undergraduate, then my master's degree, and spent most of my career in working in the business area, finance and strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all fine and great, but my definition of success was all based on this idea that, like, what people thought success looked like.
Right.
Now, when I look at the world of success, I define it on my own terms and based on what I want to see as success. So
Yeah. A lot of people are afraid to do that because they're
yeah,
told from very, very early age, by well-meaning people, oh, well, can you really make a living as a musician or an artist or
yeah,
whatever it is? Or it's, your mom and your dad are in STEM professions and you should be too, or what have you. But we're very rarely, so up until the age of, I would have to say about 30 years of age, most of our decisions have been significantly directed by what other people think.
absolutely, absolutely.
And very little investment by institutions or well meaning advisors is in the realm of understanding what the individual, what's actually in there. And a lot of people say, well, they just don't know. They haven't grown up yet. They have no idea. Well, okay, but you're not paying attention either.
Mm-hmm.
Very also similar story. Artist, lauded for my artwork, creative writing, painted
Mm-hmm.
that.
I
Not
love it.
fantastic, but I like it. Whatever. Uh,
I love
you
it.
know, uh, and I went to school for architecture and design.
Wow.
I did. I was in a family that supported that. They understood that. They supported that. My mother's been a lifelong ceramic artist and still is. internationally renowned ceramic artist. So, not that there's a lot of money in that. So I knew that. Okay, what's the definition of success? Society tells me that I have to be an architect, and it's not that I didn't enjoy being an architect. To a point. I didn't really enjoy the personalities I was around. And at that time, it was very much a male driven business and still is to a great degree. And, they really wanted me to design draperies or whatever. And I did not like that. I resented that. What I was really sneaking good at was project management. So I went into interior corporate design spaces and stayed there for quite some time and had a healthy, thriving career in project management and moving on, and said, okay, well, this is boring. I'm not really doing what I love to do, which is make things better. So then I decided continuous improvement was the way forward. So I did that. And I was really excited about that until I found out leaders just changed their mind, and all the work that we'd done got flushed down the toilet every time a leader changed their mind, because they weren't embracing what needed to happen. They weren't demonstrating, they weren't being what they wanted other people to be, right? They weren't demonstrating the behavior they wanted their teams to model. So I said, well, I'll fix this. I'll become leadership development certified. Yeah. Okay. We would love to say that you can fix those leaders, or you really, really not leaders. They're bad bosses. And guess what? They're not looking to be fixed.
Yeah. The desire has to be there for them, for that change to happen, which is, really an important inflection point, is to really know that, okay, no matter what happens, a system has to be ready to be changed. When I say system, I'm really thinking about it from not just the person, but the environment has to support the person's change, which has been a real realization for me.
That's right. That's right. And, it's interesting because we will very readily see what's broken in other systems outside of our own system. We can spot those issues and flaws very quickly. However, I would encourage people to consider, okay, well, if something's bothering you in the system that you're looking at, whether it be leadership, whether it be your company, personal life, what have you, what's going on in you that you can shift?
Yeah.
To help make that irritant be less of an irritant. Now, I'm not saying that, just put up with a terrible toxic workplace because you need to rise above. That's not what I'm saying. And be cautious of, taking that baggage somewhere else too. So it's never just outside. It's usually the hard work starts inside. So when it comes to aligning your narrative with where you want to be, Tony, what's that first step that you encourage people to take?
Yeah. So I think I love that you said that the change starts within, because it does. It's before you can change or make an effective change in the environment, you have to start to really understand, what is it, the stories that I'm telling myself? So oftentimes when I think about that internal alignment, it starts with, really reflecting on, where am I now and how did I get here? And that starts with the past looking. So usually when I talk with somebody, I'm looking at the past with them, really reflecting on what was the journey that brought me here. And oftentimes with people who have come to this role where they feel maybe misaligned, it's understanding, well, why did I like this field? Why did I like this particular job? Why did I like this particular, place that I'm in? And then how did it get off course? Is it just me feeling like this particular situation needs a little tweak, or do I need a complete overhaul, a redesign? So that's really why the looking back is important. And then also looking into the future. So I think of this as almost that time traveling dynamic of thinking, what do I want my future to look like? So that I can start to think about, why do I feel stuck in this environment? Is it because it's not meeting my needs of what I want my future to look like, and I feel as though I'm feeling held back? So that future vision is really important. Because if you feel like you're being held back, that makes you feel as though your environment is not supporting you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the present state is where you really have to think, what is it about my environment that now that it's awareness about who I am, who I have been, who I want to be,
Mm-hmm.
what is it about my current state that's not serving me? And
Right.
what can I do about it?
Now, that's very powerful. I ask people, when you consider where you want to go with your life and your career, what comes up for you?
Yeah.
Like, is that a supporting thought and emotion, or is that anxiety or fear or oh well, I can't do that. I'm not qualified. What have you? What is coming up for you? And please note that if you are around an environment, because we are, shaped by our environment. If you're in an unsupportive environment, that will not help fuel that future focus and supporting narrative that
Mm.
gets you where you want to go. It may encourage you to take side steps or second guess
Mm.
yourself, or maybe not empower yourself with that internal narrative that allows you to embrace what you can accomplish.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is important about that is to see that it's not just about, every environment is bad, like,
Mm-hmm.
to support, like you're not always saying, okay, because I'm in this situation and I don't feel good about my situation, it's
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in a toxic environment or my environment is not supportive. That's not always the case, although sometimes it is.
Yeah, sometimes it is, sometimes not.
Yeah, it might be that it's just not the environment that's supporting your next step,
Mm.
or you're not looking at it from the right perspective, that it's just a stepping stone to your next endeavor. And so I think that's why it's important to change that narrative that you're showing up with in that very moment.
Mm-hmm.
um, and you can't get that perspective unless you are willing to challenge your situation.
Right, right. So,
Yeah.
Tony, tell me a little bit about once you get the alignment, that internal alignment, what
Mm.
does that look like? Like, what are some of the top aha moments that you share or you get with collaborating with your clients that helps people and those people either tuning in now or later understand how can I shift? Like, how can I know that there is a misalignment? Because some people don't know that
Yeah.
they are misaligned. We talk about this past, future, and present, and getting really clear on that. But what if I'm just feeling, and is it a
Yeah.
misalignment? Is it just because I tell people this? It could be what you're doing, who you're doing it with or for, or something internal that's a roadblock, or a combination
Yeah.
of all three. So these are all these possibilities. What do we do to suss that out?
Well, I love that. So this comes back to the reason why I choose inspiration as a real core part of what I
Mm-hmm.
talk about. Inspiration is important to me. And so one of the things that I have people do is really look at their calendar. That's the first thing that you can do to find out whether or not you're in a place of missing something in your life,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not feeling fulfilled. Look at your week ahead and say to yourself, gosh, is there anything in the week ahead that I'm looking forward to, that I'm excited about?
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that, if you don't have a thing in your calendar in the next week ahead that has you excited, that you're not like feeling a spark of inspiration around,
Mm-hmm.
then you might be in a place where you're starting to be in a rut,
Mm-hmm.
or have lost connection to the work
Right.
that got you excited in the first place. And so that's a sign that you need to start maybe thinking differently about your work.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean a complete overhaul. It just means you got to start doing some little steps that will put you in the right place. And that could just start by looking at your calendar and saying, I'm going to do one thing next week that is for me,
Mm-hmm.
work related, personal related, maybe both, that will get you feeling like you're doing something that's going to get you back excited,
Mm-hmm.
and sparked up. Because, work isn't always a happy party time for everybody. There are challenges. There's no doubt about it. But you should always find a way to find that point where you feel, I'm proud of that. I'm proud and excited about these things that have happened in my life, because those are the things that make everything else worthwhile.
Okay, so it sounds like really understanding what your true north is, and aligning with that priority. But I encourage everyone to understand, what is that true north for you, and oftentimes it's not necessarily found in the workplace.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
living and not living to work, working to live.
Exactly.
So when we started our conversation, you mentioned this really transformational pivot point you had, where you looked around the room and you saw people who were not being authentic, who were showing up as how they felt like they should be, and perhaps not necessarily a very beneficial environment, and as a result, totally disengaged, and probably totally disengaged from themselves and misaligned. What would you say to that room now?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, wake up, because you think you're fooling everybody. You think you're fooling these people in the room, and giving them a sense of motivation to the future. But in fact, what you're doing, you're demotivating them. You're giving them a sense of not really knowing the path forward, but trying to give them placating them with what you're saying. Under all of these toxicity, the conversations that I heard, there was a feeling of treating people like just resources to get the job done, and not seeing that we can create businesses that see that the people that work for us are not just resources, and instead they are the business. And that we don't want to just retain people, but we want people to feel like they're enriched when they come to work for us.
Right.
And the way to do that is not as hard as it may seem.
Mm-hmm.
It's really getting an understanding of, how can we make people better by coming to work for us, connecting them to the purpose of what we're after, treating them like humans, and really getting a sense of, like, how can we go through this together, not just me leading you, but
Right.
us together.
A more collaborative leadership style.
Absolutely.
Everything that I'm reading right now, and my fellow coaching colleagues, we're really seeing this push to more of a collaborative leadership style. And to be honest with you, that's really the best style that there ever was anyway. However, we put up with other styles because of necessity, or maybe that's because it's the way it always has been. And
Yep.
that paradigm is slowly fading, thank goodness, which makes it very awkward for people who don't know another way of being. And they're finding a huge dissonance now with the people that do work for them, that do look to them for leadership. And they're not being able to provide that in a way and in a means by which resonates with the people who are coming up, the younger generations now. They're not going to put up with it. They're just not. And to be honest with you, even my generation, we just put up with it because that's what was in place. That was the environments that we walked into, and we were told to suck it up.
Yeah.
So we did, and we put up with it. And this work hard, play hard ethic, do as I say, not as I do. You have to act this certain way to be a leader or get ahead or be promoted, which is all bunk, and it doesn't work. And now we're starting to see backlash from that. We're starting to see the Great Resignation. People call the Great Reset. All these things are changing, and that's making it very uncomfortable for people who are attached to this way of being. But it is not the mode by which we'll survive in the quote unquote future of work. It just won't. So when we're looking forward, we have to adapt a new way of showing up, whether that's an individual contributor or whether you're a leader. And I would argue everyone is a leader.
Yes.
Okay? The hardest person to lead is yourself. Yeah. So, looking into the future of work, Tony, what do you say and see really needs to be shifted?
Yeah, I'll start by, this is actually a comment that I want to add to what you shared earlier, and then I'll get into this. and I think they'll tie together. So first of all, I often say that what you tolerate is what you get.
Ooh,
So
yeah. Mm.
I think it's important. I say this a
Yeah.
lot in my coaching conversations too, is that, be careful what you tolerate, because if you tolerate bad behavior, then people see that and then they'll follow suit.
Mhm.
So be careful what you put out, because it's what you get back.
Right.
And I think that is a good segue into the future of work and how we're going to start seeing things show up. If we want to do things differently, then we have to do things differently.
Mhm.
Um, as leaders, as people who want a different world, we have to start thinking, what do we want to see in the world? What is the thing that we want to see? And how can we be part of that change, knowing that we can't do it alone? We have to actually help other people see what we want by sharing our own voices and
Mhm.
helping other people to share their voices as well. So it's going to come from us collaborating more together. And I think one of the things, not to get into the, talk about Ukraine or the war, but it's been so powerful to see a lot of unity in conversations that have come up through, seeing the leadership of Zelensky and people really supporting, what he's been doing for the country.
Mhm.
But I think it's also powerful to see that the amount of people coming together in support of certain causes.
Mhm.
We need more of that. We need more unity. We need more people coming together and sharing voices and saying, well, we're not going to tolerate these things any longer.
Right.
Let's do something about it. Even if it's little things,
Mhm.
little steps lead to big movements.
Yes, and I think we're seeing a lot of that, particularly now. A lot of things came to head in 2020, and we're seeing some wonderful collaborations across different special interest groups, across different you know, interest groups in general, whether it be communities or driven for women's rights or what have you. I mean, there's so much wonderful change that we're seeing right now. And I
Yeah.
tell people this, we are just at the brink of authoring a bright new future. So we're just cracking open that door, and we're
Yeah.
standing on the threshold. And for some people, that's really scary
Hmm.
because they're very attached to the way it's always been. And okay, we just get back to normal. Well, I have news for you. 2019 wasn't that great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can't go back. We can't take
Mm.
away everything that's happened. We can't wipe people's brains. We're not going to go backwards. We are going to go forwards, and it's up to each one of us to alter the future that we want.
Hmm.
And
Well
that's
said.
done through our behaviors and our actions and what we set as our intent.
Mm. Yeah, I love how you said that, because there's something about that sentiment that we all have to come together and author the future together, in a
Mhm.
sense. And the only way we can do that is through more honest conversations,
Mhm.
and more honest connections that we can have with each other. And I'll take it even one step further, which is it has to be courageous. We have to
Mhm.
have the courage to speak up and say the things that sometimes we've been afraid to say in the past. So saying the things that kind of make our stomachs a little bit uneasy. But we know that it's the truth that we have to say, because we've been holding it back. So, if there was something I could have as my closing thought, and not that I'm at the end yet, but that's the one thing that I wish for everyone, is to have that courageous conversation come out that you've been holding back. Maybe
Right.
it's time.
That's powerful too, Tony. Thank you for sharing that because that's another thing. It was some research done, and right now it escapes me whom exactly did the research, but they were talking about what we need to do to thrive in a time where it's compounding and constant change. And it's not that change hasn't always been the constant, it has.
Mhm.
However, change has not been quite so frequent and
Yeah.
compounding. So the amount of change that we are asked to assimilate is so much more than it has been in previous years. So with that being said, how can we thrive during this very strong change cycle when a lot of things are shifting, the paradigms are shifting, how we need to show up is different, we need to lead is different, how we need to collaborate is different, the conversations we need to have are different. What do we need to do? Well, have candid conversations and create an environment where that's okay to have that candid conversation.
Yeah.
Those things have been missing and have been absent not only from the workplace but also from our personal lives. And I've always been a person who just says whatever the elephant is in the room. And it's never been a problem for me. I know people are really shocked to hear this, but I've never had a problem just saying, hey, this is an elephant in the room. Why is no one talking about this?
Yeah.
Talk about the elephant in the room.
Mm.
Have a candid conversation. Be human. It's okay.
Well, I love that you share this, because there's an element of this which is the thing that people often miss around these conversations is like, well, if I put something out there and they don't agree, then what happens there is like you have to kind of think of it as like, it's okay to put something out there and then be wrong. And I think for most of my life, and I think for most of us, we're afraid to be wrong. But now I've come into this place of my life where I've realized that being wrong is fantastic. Because I don't mind, like, to borrow from Adam Grant, his Think Again, the book, which is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't read it, go pick it up. He challenges this idea that, like, we have to be always willing to think again, to be wrong, and to be able to embrace being wrong. And I love that idea, because if you don't risk being wrong, then you'll walk around just holding to these ideals that you think are right, and you could be wrong.
So, or worse yet, operating on assumptions, and that's never a good place to operate from. Yeah. And I get it. People don't really want to have a candid conversation because fear of judgment, right? We have that fear of judgment. Oh my God, what is it? They might think whatever. I guess maybe I just don't care, but I know that in order to really make forward progress, we need to be able to be comfortable to have these types of candid conversations, to be more open. And as leaders, wherever you are in the hierarchy, it doesn't matter if you're a leader, individual contributor, you're a leader leading, managing teams, wherever you are, sharing those with those around you and creating the environment where it's a safe space for people to have open dialogues.
Yeah.
And to talk through.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're just going to be a victim of doing the same old crap over and over again that doesn't work.
Exactly.
It doesn't work. And just doing it again not going to make it work.
It's like the old saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And some people get very frustrated. They get very frustrated at leadership. They say, well, they should know better. I don't see why they make all these blah, blah, blah. Well, okay. Take time out. And let's look at it holistically. Historically, there's been a lot of fear-based leadership. And because of fear of judgment, because of fear, well, if I deliver bad news up the chain, and that's going to make me look bad, and I'm going to get fired. And we've been through a lot of economic cycles where people have put, I don't want to get fired because I need to pay the bills, over let me share honest information with my leadership. Okay, let's just be honest. That's what's going on. So when that trickles up the chain, then you have all this misinformation basically, or held back, or put in such a way where I'm not going to look bad. And then all that gets up to the people who make these big decisions. And you're like, I don't understand why they make decisions. They're stupid and they're making wrong decisions. They're making wrong decisions because the information they have is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that their incentives are aligned with them, making those decisions in that way.
Right.
Misalignment.
All the metrics. You have to look at the metrics. People will live to their metrics. They will every time. So be careful.
Exactly.
What metrics you put out there, and be careful what environment you create. Because if you don't make it safe for people to give you bad news as a leader, you'll be making a lot of dumb decisions.
Absolutely.
So that's my 2 cents.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
That's my 2 cents for the day. Well, Tony, what other inspired nuggets of information do you have to share with us before we wrap up our show today?
Yeah, I'd love to share this one thing that I love sharing, especially during the pandemic. It's been a powerful exercise. I often say that when you're feeling stuck and you're feeling like I don't know what my next move is,
Mhm.
that the best thing to do is to expand your vision and narrow your focus. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is that sometimes just stepping away from what you're looking at and looking at the periphery, what's beside you, what are the different things that are around you, because options are around. There's always possibilities, there's always a path forward, but you have to be able to think about it from different angles. Once you do that, then realize that if you try to execute on all those possibilities, you'll get paralyzed. You can't do it all. So you have to narrow your focus and say, what's the next step that I'm going to take? So narrowing your focus does not mean that you're saying no to everything all forever. It just means you're saying no to it right now. I'm going
mhm.
to try this. So narrow your focus allows you to be really intentional about that next step.
That's fantastic. I really like that. I like that. I
Yeah,
like that a lot. Thank you for sharing. And
you're
it's been
welcome.
a real pleasure having you on the show too, as well, Tony.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure here, and I really enjoyed
Really.
just the great conversation and really thinking about where we're headed. I think conversation like this
Hmm.
is what moves us forward.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks. We just had a comment coming in here, and I'm trying to see who did it, but I'm not seeing it on my screen over here. But I will probably in a moment. So someone said, "Thank you, Aaron and Tony, and thank you for all of you tuning in, whether you're listening while working." And I get it that you probably can't comment necessarily while working, but thank you if you're tuning in now, and if you're watching the replay. Don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you. We're here to be a resource. You can check out Tony again. I'll run this banner across right here. You can check out him at inspiredpurposecoaching.com. Of course, reach out to him on LinkedIn. If you're tuning in from YouTube, hop on over to his website and check him out. He's got a lot of great information. Oh, by the way, he has a book too. So
Yes,
be sure to grab his book. Is it on Amazon as well, Tony?
it is. Yes,
Great, great.
climbing the
I'll
right
put that in the
mountain.
show notes if I haven't already. I think I put
Mhm.
something in the show notes as well. Um, but yeah, feel free to hop over there, check out his book, linked in with him. Check him out. He's a great person and has a lot of true nuggets of inspiration and joy for our purpose, our future as we move forward into this very uncertain um, wherever we're going. So, it's interesting, and I just want to leave you with this. If you're feeling like the future is foggy and you're not quite sure what the next step is, you can't see that clear path. And hey, as someone who's a planner, that's pretty stressful, right?
Yeah.
I can't see that clear path. I want to know what's next, 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 next. Maybe that's not quite so clear for you. Let me share with you something that helped me get through that period of just not being able to see it, not having a vision.
Hmm.
Know where your goals are and take a step.
Yeah.
Just take a step. Just take a step forward. And like Tony said, you said, widen
Expand your vision,
expand your vision and
narrow your
narrow
focus.
your focus. Right. So expand your vision and narrow your focus. And when it's almost like if you're driven through fog, really dense fog, can't see squat. It's scary. But what can you see?
Yeah.
All right. You can see what's right in front of you. So you can see that. And you know where you're going. So trust in that and expand your vision, narrow your focus, and live an inspired life and inspired career. And for all of you tuning in now or later, it's my biggest, fondest wish for you, my friends, to keep elevating. Bye for now.